Hello everyone. I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha and I welcome you to my channel. As always, I'm really grateful that you're listening, subscribing and commenting. I really appreciate the support. And in this one, I wanted to answer a question that a viewer asked recently, Oliver J. And he asked, how do INFJs deal with addictions? Now, I can't particularly speak from my perspective because I've never been addicted to drugs or anything that you'd consider, bad by society standards. So I've never been addicted to alcohol, I don't think. I used to drink a lot when I was younger. Oh my goodness, I would drink to the point I'd black out. But I was never in a situation where I wasn't able to stop. So when I decided no more alcohol, I just stopped cold turkey, and I haven't had alcohol in years now, 10, 12 years. Anyways, so no drugs, no alcohol, nothing like that. But I definitely can say that I have been not addicted necessarily to a point where my life was being affected by it, but I was spending inordinate amounts of money on shopping, where I did not actually need to purchase all these items, and I had the money for it, but it was unnecessary to buy all these items, and I would not even wear a lot of those things. I'd buy them, I'd put them in my closet, they'd still have their tags on it, and then a year or two years later, I would dump them into the Salvation Army box or something like that. It was such a waste of money. Now that I think about all of those hundreds of thousands of dollars, perhaps not hundreds of thousands, but thousands of dollars that I wasted, I do feel like, wow, I could have really done a lot more useful things with that cash that I had. But then again, as soon as I decided, okay, this is getting to be ridiculous, I stopped, and then I went on to saving money. But I can definitely say that, and this is something that I've kind of dealt with throughout my life, is that INFJs do have an obsessive personality. Like, we have an intense obsessive personality. And sometimes this can actually be a detriment, because once we get addicted or obsessed with something that we're really, really excited about, it can get to a point where we kind of forget about the entire universe, about the entire world. We forget about drinking, eating, going to the toilet, taking care of ourselves, sleeping, and we just are completely enamored and focused and obsessed by that particular project or idea or whatever it might be. And so I know that what happens with these kind of obsessive personalities, in a lot of cases with INFJs, that it can translate to an addiction, because we just get so into what we're doing, so obsessed or intensely focused on it, that we can kind of get addicted to it. Now, I think the main definition from what I read about addictions, the main definition of an addiction versus an obsession, is that an addiction causes you to, causes your life patterns or lifestyle to be disturbed. So basically anything that causes you to have a disturbance in your life in a certain manner could be termed an addiction. That is, if you're not able to live a lifestyle, a normal lifestyle, if you call it normal, where you're able to go to work and do all those things without disruption, then you're addicted. So for example, a person who drinks socially every so often is drinking socially. But if they're addicted, then they're skipping work to go drink alcohol, or they're drinking so much the night before work that it affects their work the next day, or they might not show up to work next day because they're hungover, or they're still sleeping off their alcohol, the alcohol that they drank, right? So it causes disruptions in your lifestyle, it causes disruptions in your relationships and in everything like that, right? Like, everything is put out of its normal routine, right? And that's what the problem with an addiction is, that it's not like, oh, we're just confused about addictions because it's a health thing. Yes, of course, it affects the health negatively, but also affects relationships negatively. It affects a lot of other things negatively as well, which is what the problem is in reality, right? Now, I do think that, and this is something that I've said to a lot of my friends, and sorry I'm sweating so much, it is so hot here right now. And I don't want to complain about the heat, but because I know a lot of you are in really cold countries, but my goodness, I sweat a lot. Anyways, so what I wanted to say is that what happens with an INFJ is in a lot of cases, our obsessions will just remain that, obsessions. So, we'll get very, very obsessed with a particular item, but we're able to maintain our daily course of life despite the obsession. So I have many obsessions, and every INFJ is like that. Many INFJs, almost every INFJ I've met, actually, I should say, has a bunch of obsessions in that they're just like completely interested in the subject. They read up about it all day long, all night long, and they know a lot more about it. They're amateur like historians, or they're amateur mechanics. Like, they could become professional if they wanted to, because they just know so much about it, but they keep it amateur level because they just love doing it, just because of the passion of it, right? Now, so a lot of our INFJ personality kind of gears towards that, obsessions. Yeah. Of course, as you can imagine, if an unhealthy INFJ starts becoming obsessive about the wrong kind of things, then it can lead to addictions. And that's why it's very important, and I've said this to you many times before, it's very important to be proud of your obsessions and to maintain them, and to be okay with having obsessions. It's quite all right if you spend 3 or 4 hours a day reading up about how people in the 19th century or in the 15th century used to use the toilet, if that's one of your obsessions, like sewage systems of the prehistoric times, or from the early 10th century, or things like that. If that's something that really interests you, go for it. Do not be ashamed of it. Do not be saddened by it. Do not be worried by it. It's okay. It's okay to have these addictions, because that's how you build your personality, and that's a big part of your personality, and it's okay to have that. It's absolutely fine. It's just that I'm sure a lot of you have dealt with a situation where you're trying to escape from the world, because this is something that we do as INFJs quite often, when we're not really comfortable with living in the world, because either we don't feel worthy enough of it, or we feel like we are a burden on society, or we feel like the world is just going to hell in a handbasket, and why even bother. It is very likely that you will try to, or you'll kind of cling to certain addictions, or certain addictive substances, to get over this big hole that you have in yourself, right? Because you have this emptiness, you're feeling this kind of despair, this kind of sadness, this kind of longing for something more, but you don't have it, and so you have this emptiness inside of you, and you try to fill it up with addictions, right? Now, what typically INFJs do is we fill it up with obsessions. So when I do have a bad day, whatever is going on, if I had a fight with my family, or if my mom said something cruel to me, I'll go and read my manga. That's my obsession. I'll read my manga, and I'll read for like 3 or 4 hours until late at night, and then I'll feel better, right? Of course, it's a way of numbing myself, but also a way of making myself feel better, because it's nice to read manga, and it's like kind of a distraction from the real world. The problem is that, when you start using marijuana as a sort of distraction, or unfortunately alcohol, or even like more stronger drugs than that for a distraction, or things like that are considered okay but are actually quite dangerous if you do too much of it, like shopping or gambling, or eating too much sugar or carbs, or binge eating, right? Things like that. So there's lots of different things that you can kind of get obsessed with or addicted to, because you're trying to fill that gap in your life, right? And the main priority why INFJs are constantly looking to finding their life purpose is because if we don't find something that fulfills us, we will try all of these other things to fill that gap, because we need to find something that fulfills us, right? Like that's one of the reasons why INFJs will spend their entire lifetimes sometimes looking for that thing that fulfills them. Now, what I am realizing as an older INFJ, and a wiser one, not so wise, but an older one for sure, that there's many different things that will fulfill you. And I'm realizing this for myself, is that I have 4 or 5 different beautiful things that fulfill me and make me really happy on a day-to-day basis. And one day I'll use a manga to make myself feel better and feel fulfilled, reading a manga. On other days I'll use my writing to make myself feel fulfilled. On other days I'll use looking into the investment market to make myself feel fulfilled. On yet another day I will go around and feed all the stray cats and dogs in my neighborhood that look like they're hungry, to make myself feel fulfilled, things like that. Like, I mean, there are many different things that make me feel good about myself, make me feel like I have contributed on this planet, that I have given back in a way that I'm not just taking up space, which is a big thing for INFJs. And so when I do this, and I'll constantly be rotating through all of these different things, when I do this, I don't feel like there's a hole inside of me that needs to be filled up with addictive substances. I don't feel like there's like this gap inside of me, that this emptiness that needs to be pushed through or ignored or numbed using alcohol, sugar, or shopping, right? I'm not saying that I never use shopping to make myself feel better. Of course I do, but I don't do it to a point where I'm in huge amounts of debts and frustrated because of that. I do, of course, use sugar as well on occasions. I don't eat that much sugar. I'm not a big sugar person. But I do eat a lot of carbs when I'm feeling down about myself. I'll eat a lot of pasta and things like that, or ramen. But of course, again, you have to kind of think about the levels and the spectrum of the thing, right? That's the whole point of it. Some days you will need to numb yourself. Some days you will need to make yourself feel better by doing all these things. But the main priority that all INFJs should have is to find that life purpose thing, that thing that makes you come alive, that 4 or 5 things that make you come alive, even like 10 or 15 things, even whatever it might be. It could be small little things that you kind of drop into the day that makes you feel really good about yourself. I start off my day with meditation because it's one of those things that just kind of really makes me feel content and complete, right? And then I do yoga in the day, and then I eat delicious foods, and then I go to beautiful cafes in Bali. I'll meet up with friends, I'll do a little bit of writing, I'll do my work, which is also very fulfilling to me. I'll do these videos. I've also started doing TikTok videos, which give me a lot of fulfillment. And so with all of this kind of things added into the day, by the end of the day, I feel very good about myself. I feel like I've had a complete day, that I haven't wasted my time on this planet, my precious time. And that makes me feel like, okay, good. I can go to sleep with a content heart, and I can get up tomorrow morning and do it all over again, right? So that's something that I really recommend to you. I know it's a very, I think it's a preemptive kind of strike rather than after the fact. But I really do recommend that you do the preemptive strike, right? Like, do not get into this mode where you need to be addicted to items in order to fill that gap. Start figuring out what makes you feel happy and makes you feel that purposefulness inside of you before you get to a point where you need to start using addictive substances to get over that. Again, as I said, I've not ever dealt with addictions myself, so I can't be an expert and say, okay, this is how you should deal with it. But I have shared with you my perspective on how I've dealt with it preemptively, if I should say. Because with an obsessive personality like mine, it would be very easy for me to get addicted to things if I wanted to. If I wanted to start drinking a lot of alcohol, it'd be very easy because I get obsessive. And if I like a particular thing, if I found an alcohol that I really liked, I could be like, oh my God, this is great. I'm just going to drink it all the time. Or if I liked a particular thing like gambling, I never even got into playing poker or blackjack, because I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll get addicted to it. So I should just stay away from this because it's dangerous. A lot of things I do that with, because I'm just like, I have an intense obsessive personality. If I start doing one of these things, I'm not sure if I'll be able to stop. So let's not even start. So this is my perspective on it. I hope it was helpful. I don't know if it was. Let me know what your thoughts are on the subject. I would love to hear from you if you ever dealt with addictions in the past and how you dealt with it. And if you've never dealt with it, why do you think that is? Do you think INFJs have an addictive prone personality, or do we just avoid it because we're just so obsessed with all of our passion projects? Again, thank you so much for that question, Oliver, and I shall speak to all of you in the next one. Bye.